Assalamu alaikum and welcome everyone to a second episode of Ramadan in Lockdown with me, Hayyan Bhabha. We are joined this evening with Sister Asma Shuaik, who's a public speaker who you may know in November, very famously now challenged an anti-Semite on the tube and protected a young Jewish family from hatred on the London Underground. We have Imam Abdullah Hassan, who's an Imam and counsellor based in East London. We have Sister Councillor Saima Ashraf, who's the Deputy Leader of Barking and Dagenham Council and Councillor for the Barking District. And we have Brother Dawood Masood, who is an Operations Manager for Al Hiram Mosque in Luton and Chairman of Cuba Tours, which runs Hajj and Umrah tours. Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak to everybody. I hope everybody is well. I'll come to you all individually. I think I'd like to talk about this evening about how Ramadan is different this year for all of us and how we can maintain our spirituality in this month, how we stay socially connected to each other during iftars and the ways in which people are doing things differently this year. I'd like to begin first with Sister Asma. Asma, I understand you're a mother of two lovely young children. How is Ramadan different for you this year? What did you do last year, and what do you do or will you do differently this year?
First of all, I'd like to say Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak to everybody watching, and may this Ramadan bring blessings and mercy upon all the Ummah and all of humanity at this really unprecedented times.
I mean,
for the, I'm sure a lot of the mothers will agree with me that we usually in Ramadan we don't like going out. We're just at home with the kids or in the kitchen cooking, because that's what to prepare the iftar for everybody in the house. So it's not, for me, it's not much of a difference, but it is a difference where you can actually go, because I live in Birmingham, but I got my family in London, so I do visit them in London. And I do like to visit them during Ramadan, and I do like to visit my family and my mum and my dad and my sisters and everybody. So it's a bit difficult in that sort of sense, because that sort of community, that sort of gathering as with families is a bit difficult. You can't do that at the moment. Obviously, you want to protect everybody from this vicious virus that's going around at the moment, and you want to protect yourself and your family as well from that. So social distancing is difficult, especially when you've got family who, my parents are older parents, so they're on their own. So it's quite difficult at this time. So I think that's what's, for me, that's what's really got me mainly about this Ramadan. I mean, anything else, I don't really like going out during Ramadan. I prefer to stay at home. But that's the aspect that I feel like it's a big change for me, because I can't see my family.
So would you say in one way it's partly a blessing in disguise also that you're able to be at home? You're kind of forced to be at home, even though you may not be able to visit people. But being that someone who prefers to be at home, it's something that is, helpful to you at this time.
It definitely is. I mean, obviously with the kids being at home, it is difficult because you're fasting. You have to get up at a normal time as you usually do with the children when you go to school, and your fast is a bit longer and it's a bit more tiring. But alhamdulillah, I mean, my daughter goes to all Muslim school, so her school, alhamdulillah, have given her a lot of material where she can do decorations. We do decorations with each other. We encourage them to do a lot of dhikr, a lot of praying. I mean, you can sort of, it's really good because you can actually have that sort of connection with your children before you didn't really have it, because everyone's rushing around there in school. You've got your job, you've got your housework to do. You're obviously got to make the iftar. You've got everyone's joining in. It's difficult. But now that you don't have anything, you don't have much to do. You've got more time to spend with your children and explain to them what Ramadan's really about, and also encourage them with prayer. Encourage just to decorating the house on its own was a big thing for my children. They loved it. So I think that's what was really nice about this sort of Ramadan.
That's true, and you touched upon a good point there about using this time to learn or relearn prayer. And I think that as adults as well, I think that we should use this opportunity for those of us who may wish to learn more about reading more, learning more about more prayers and du'as we can learn, or improving or perfecting our prayers. And I don't think we should be ashamed, even as adults, to say that we can always learn more and do better. And I think this is the perfect time to do that.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. I mean, with my children, prayer is very important. So, I mean, alhamdulillah, when I pray, they come pray with me. But what I've started to do now, and I'm sure a lot of other mothers do it as well, is I put the adhan on really loud in the house, and I allow them to like feel the sort of vibe of prayer about Ramadan, and sit down and talk to them about stories about the prophets, and what du'as to say while you're breaking your fast. Because my daughter, she's around 8 years old now, and she wants to fast the whole day. If she can do it, then she could do it. I mean, I try to encourage her to do half days because she's still young, but she's determined and she'll do the whole day, and she wants to do the second day as well. So alhamdulillah, they've got the determination. And when you explain to them about what Ramadan is and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be happy with them in the simple terms, obviously for children, they get really excited, and they actually are quite enthusiastic to join in.
Sure. So I'm going to come to Imam Hassan. And I think many of the women, ladies watching with this evening will probably agree that I've heard many ladies talk about how it's high time now for the men in the household to do some work in the house because they won't be going to the masjids. But Imam Hassan, are you going to the masjid, and are you affected as an imam? First of all, are you at home more now, or what are you doing? How are things different for you?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ramadan Mubarak, everyone on the call, and also the viewers of this program. Jazakallah khair for inviting me. In terms of how I've been affected, alhamdulillah, with every challenge, as we know from the Islamic perspective, there's always blessings. And for the believer, the Prophet Muhammad said, "The ajaban li amri al-mu'min," that how amazing is the affair of the believer. In all circumstance, his affair is good. If his calamity, then he is patient and he is thankful towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If he has some prosperity and success in this dunya, then he's thankful and patient towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in every situation, we are thankful and patient. I'm not going to the mosque. None of us should be going to the mosque in the sense that congregating in the mosque for Taraweeh or Jumu'ah, as everyone should know, in the UK, in fact, all over the world, there's been a complete suspension of the prayers, Jumu'ah prayers, Taraweeh prayers, the 5 daily prayers, because the objective is to stop the spread of the virus. And we know from the Islamic perspective, a lot of people may misunderstand and saying that, why are you stopping, you imams and scholars and mosques, committee members, why are you stopping people from going to the mosque? And I've been asked, this question more often than I would want to. And I explained to people, look, we are stopping, we have closed the mosque temporarily. It's not a complete absolute closure of the mosque. Inshallah, when this crisis is over, when this crisis subsides, then inshallah we will open the mosque again, and we'll happily go to the mosque for Jum'ah and congregate and be with our friends and family members and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we are trying to stop a virus from spreading, from killing people. And we know from the Quran that if you save one life, you save the life of the whole of humanity. So we are not disobeying God. We are not disobeying the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are obeying God, and we are obeying the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam by not going to the mosque. And as I said at the beginning, that in every situation there is khair, there is goodness for the believer. By us not going to the mosque, we are obeying God Almighty. We're obeying the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I've not been going to the mosque. Alhamdulillah, all our activities have been, we've moved online through Zoom and Facebook and other platforms. The Friday, obviously we're not praying Jummah online, but we are delivering reminders and classes throughout the week online via Zoom and other platforms. So alhamdulillah, it's not been bad. It's not been very challenging, but but we would like to go back to the mosque inshallah soon. As there are many organizations in the UK and abroad, many scholars, scholar boards, providing guidances. In the UK, we have the British Board of Scholars and Imams. Alhamdulillah, they've been providing a lot of great guidances in terms of fasting in Ramadan, in terms of who's able to fast, not who can be exempted from fasting. each is relating to a matter of life and death, end of life care. So alhamdulillah, I feel that our scholars, imams and scholars up and down the country, they've been more active, you know. They've not been dissuaded by the closures of mosques. Alhamdulillah, they've been more active online. And I've seen so many, you know, classes on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. You would think that, you know, our scholars and imams, how do they know about Facebook? How do they know about Instagram and Snapchat? But alhamdulillah, most of them are on it, and most of them are delivering fatwas and Islamic verdicts and edicts on Twitter and Instagram. So in every situation, alhamdulillah, there is goodness, and we have to adapt, because we are trying to protect our country. We are trying to protect our people in the UK and all over the world. And God is not only inside the mosque, you know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not only inside the mosque. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in our houses, is in our company workplaces, is in our, you know, in the parks, wherever we are, God is there. We only have to just reach out to him, raise our hands, and connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So God is not confined within the four walls of the mosque, you know. For those people who become anxious that we are closing the mosque, inshallah, ideally, yes, we would like to be in the mosque praying Taraweeh. That's one thing, you know. I've been praying Taraweeh, leading prayers, God knows for how long. And I do feel a sense of void, you know. I do feel that. I'm sure many people and many imams are going to feel that, you know. There's a sense of emptiness, I feel. You know, yesterday in London, we started our fast yesterday. So this is our second fast today. And I was speaking to some of my friends, and we were saying, you know, it doesn't feel like Ramadan, you know, because at that time we would prepare for Taraweeh, go to the mosque, and we're busy, right? And a sense of like emptiness dawned upon me, you know. I'm not going to go to the mosque. But I said to my friends, look, well, I'm going to pray Taraweeh in my house. I'm going to pray with my children. You know, it's a good opportunity for them to learn about Taraweeh, for them to learn about the Quran. And final point, I know I'm talking a lot. Final point, the way I look at Ramadan, and unfortunately for many Muslims, we become inward in the month of Ramadan. You know, we talk about, you know, our samosas and pakoras. We look forward to our samosas and pakoras, right? Ramadan has become the month of samosas and pakoras, right? And non-Muslims, our neighbors, and they are mesmerized by the amount of food that we have in the month of Ramadan. You know, we get our women folk, right? I'll come back to your point. We get our women folk in the kitchen to cook for us, right? And you're right. During this time when the men folk are at home, they should help in the household. They should help in the cleaning. They should help with the children. They should help with the food. This is the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So my final point is sometimes we become insular, you know. And if you go back to the Quran, if you look at the verse that states the obligation of Ramadan, obligation of fasting Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that in the month of Ramadan, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. In the month of Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran. Why? The hudan linnas. It is a guidance for the mankind. He didn't say the guidance for believers or Muslims. He said for the mankind. You know that the month of Ramadan is not just a month for the Muslims. It's the month for everyone, for whole of humanity, for us to share, not just with the food, nice pakoras and samosas, but the guidance that we have, the common values, the shared values that we have of humanity, of kindness, and generosity. Share those values. And unfortunately, it's difficult now, but even last year, when I look at some mosque and look at some organization, we only become insular. We have to reach out, especially in the month of Ramadan, be more active. And Nabi Sallallahu was very active in the month of Ramadan in reaching out and giving dawah to our neighbors. I'm sorry if I've taken a lot of your time, but I thought those were important points to mention. Jazakallah khair.
No, Jazakallah khair. That's I think you raised some really, really important points, and I'd like to come back to those. And actually, just should also point out that for our viewers that Imam Hassan will be leaving us a little bit earlier before the end of the show by leading by example, actually, and helping to prepare for iftar in the home. So, mashallah, thank you so much for that. And I'll come back to you on some of those points that you raised. I'd like to come now to Councillor Saima Ashraf. Saima, you're based in Barking, is that correct? Or you're the councillor for Barking, sorry. So you're based in East London. And before I talk about how things might be different in the communities in East London, I want to talk about your background from France. So you originally understand from Paris, is that correct?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Ramazan Mubarak to everybody. So yes, I am the deputy leader in Barking and Dagenham, and my background is Pakistani French. So I've lived and was raised and brought up in France, in Paris.
MashaAllah. And so I just want to understand, what's Ramadan like normally in Paris?
Well, having been brought up there, my whole family is still there. So obviously being there is like all my sisters, my family, my aunties, my cousins. So all that, family surrounding is just like, amazing to have. And so praying together, having loads and loads of iftars, being invited, each time to each member of the household. And praying together, so sharing a lot, discussing, sharing on many topics. On it can be about food, as being women, we like to cook, and having different recipes. Just pick up the phone, call one of your sisters, and ask many things, or just assist in doing those things. So this is what is different here. I'm on my own, and it's not the same. Even though I do have families, which is in North London, so it's not the same.
So are you actually using Zoom and Skype and things like that to actually connect with your family more now during, especially, well, of course it's during Ramadan, but maybe more so during the pandemic?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even my mom is on FaceTime, even my grandma is on FaceTime. So all my sisters, I have to say what has changed is that I definitely call everybody almost every day, many times a day. So it's not as usually I'm quite busy as a person, and so I'm constantly out, and it comes sometimes not to talk to my mom for 2-3 days, if not more, and even though it's just like you can nowadays WhatsApp, call, FaceTime, but you do get so much caught up in work that you don't realize, and this time now, I think, really helped me to really refocus and reprioritize, all those great values, all those, those blessings, and spending more time, contacting each family members, those that, sometimes you don't talk too often to them, maybe at a wedding or somewhere, that you would meet them. And so contacting loads of people and sharing with them, listening, listening to other things as well. So which is, yeah, for me that's different this time.
Yeah, no, you raise a really, really good point. This is a really good opportunity for us to reconnect with friends, stay in touch with family members, check in on people, make sure people are okay, make sure they have what they need. Sometimes just a phone call can brighten somebody's day, especially our elderly, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, and their brothers, sisters as well. And talking about the communities more specifically in East London, or particularly in Barking and Dagenham, what are the communities doing differently this year compared to last year?
Oh, I'm so proud. We really touched me on the right the right spot. Really, it's so proud. I'm really proud what is happening in Barking and Dagenham, because we have been working, and my portfolio, which is community leadership and engagement. And I have to say that Barking and Dagenham has such a history that we were, up to 2010, we were known to be a borough which is only far right and fascism and all this. And the amount of work that we have done since 2014 is just amazing, because we were completely not only reconnected with our resident overall, but reconnected with all the faith groups, all the voluntary social work groups, all the VCS groups that you would have, and the charities, and having some sort of joint working. So we had established what we call the BD-CAN, which is the Barking and Dagenham Citizen Alliance Network. Yes. Make it short, BD-CAN. And that's, that this pandemic actually literally, and having set up this BD-CAN enabled us to literally hit the ground running. We had literally all the food banks ready. We had all the contacts ready. We worked with the NHS and also all our contacts. We knew straight away who our vulnerable residents are. We've been doing a lot of data insight over the past few years. So we knew who is a single person, from a certain age, maybe with certain medical issues. We knew exactly the numbers. And that really enabled us to literally assign groups. So we have like 4 different groups. And one is my local mosque, which is Al Medina Mosque in Barking. And they cover quite a few wards. They deal with medicine collections. We deal with like food delivery, phone calls, everything, and that really changed the way we're receiving messages. And for those who know a bit about like local authorities, you constantly receive loads of complaints.
Yeah.
But someone we're now receiving loads of compliments and encouragement and congratulations and things like this to really encourage you to carry on. For us is a big deal, especially when the government is now looking into what we're doing. And really that's it's about bringing things together, but the reality is like the community is the resident doing it. So it's the community doing it for themselves, so helping themselves.
That's really, really positive. It's really great to hear, and good of you to shout out to Al Medina Mosque in Barking, and shout out to Ash and the team there who do some incredible work. And hopefully we'll maybe interview them on this show in the future. Talking of mosques, actually, I would like to come to you, Dawood. You run Al Hira Masjid in Luton.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Hayyan.
Wa alaikum salam. Thanks for joining this evening. And again, also to you, Ramadan Mubarak. Just talking about the running of the mosque, I understand that Al Hira Luton, for example, has closed, of course, like most mosques across the country. How has that affected your mosque and the running of it?
Thank you for having me on the show, first of all. In terms of the Al Hira Masjid, today I went at Zohar time to the masjid, 1:40. And normally we would have a Jamaat going on at 1:45, and there would be some people in the wudu area, and then some people at the front. There'll be muazzin calling the azan. But it was on me on my own just to check up if everything's okay, because a few months before we had someone come in and they took the whole donation box. So we had to just make sure we had to do checkups, once, twice per day, because it's really important. People do know that the donation box is inside the masjid, and someone might try to break into anything. So I went inside and it was empty. There was silence. Normally you would go inside a masjid, you would hear people praying, you would hear sometimes children running at the back, and you then in the evening you will hear madrasa classes happening. As soon as you walk in, you'll hear children walking here and there, and that was my daily routine. But it's really changed. This pandemic has really changed everything in terms of masajid. Masajid have gone virtually now. For example, all of our madrasa classes that we are currently doing, they have all moved online. We've got nearly 50% of the parents. When we first started, we thought, how are we going to do it? Because half of the parents probably don't know how to use Zoom, and it was the first time for us using it as well. We didn't know how to do things, so we just trialed it out and just went along with it. And it just helped us, on the way. And then told parents, some parents had, certain difficulty, and then, we learned new things as we went along as well. And we moved all of our madrasas online. And one of the key things that we found, where parents have come back to us and they've said that you've turned our houses into masajids. And when I heard this from parents, and I was thinking to myself, it's a huge change, because in madrasas, normally what you would have is parents would never be involved in the child's learning. If you, as a madrasa teacher, as a ustad in the masjid, whenever I would ask a parent to speak to them, all they knew was, has my child finished the Qaeda, has my child finished reading the Quran? But they would never know which para the child would be on, what page they're on Qaeda. And that really made me think that learning actually starts at home. From a young age, when a child's at home, when they say mama, papa, baba, that is the stage when the children start to learn. And parents are the best teachers for those, for the children as well. We started to see a huge change. Children who would, normally in class would talk and, would disturb others and who would not really concentrate, we start to see there's a camera, behind the camera, there's parents sitting down. Parents are getting involved in their child's learning. And this is where the teaching starts at home. And this was a huge change, which I personally saw. Then I started getting messages from parents, I'm trying so hard. So there was one parent, I was teaching the child wasn't concentrating, wasn't focusing at all. I was giving them 1-2 words, and that parent used to come to me and say, why are you giving my child 1-2 words? He could do more. And when the parents actually started sitting next to it and starting helping the child, she noticed that it was not the teacher's fault. It was sometimes certain children, they learn in their own pace. And some kids were doing really good. So it's a huge change that we saw where parents' involvement, and I think this is something where whoever is doing online, they would have noticed that one of the key important part in madrasa has to be when parents become involved in the education of the child, and that is when we're going to start to see the difference. Because before madrasas, it used to be a child comes in, parents just pay the fees, they do the investment, and the teacher teaches. And there was no reporting back, daily progress. But this is going to change the whole perspective of learning, and parents will be much more involved. And we will start to see more in the coming days, where, like Imam Abdullah Hassan had mentioned, online classes on YouTube, on Zoom, on different platforms. We will start to see. And then there was where imams are not approachable, the masajis are not approachable, and we change the whole perspective in terms of that way. Daily you've got Facebook live videos, you're getting more imams coming on Facebook. Some of them who deactivated themselves are reactivating their Facebook. And we're starting to see that trend, and I hope it continues as well, where mosques are doing live teaching from home. The faraid, people are learning in their own comfort of their home. And we're starting to see that change. And that is a big change, because now all of our young generation, they're on Snapchat, they're on Facebook, they're on these platforms. And they really find time, or, because of their job, they would be 9 to 5, they would find it really difficult to go and speak to someone and, speak with them. Now we're starting to see a trend where people would actually DM someone, message someone, an imam, and ask him a question on, things that actually matter to them. And they can do it anonymously, and they can ask them questions rather than going on Google and, just writing it, and you get 10 different perspectives. You're actually starting to see a change there, where people are actually, speaking to people, imams and other scholars, and on different webinars, seminars, lectures, everything is going on. And the other change that we've seen is where mosques normally, there were very few humanitarian charities were at the front when it comes to fundraising. However, mosques were they were lacking. They relied upon the people who enter on the Jummah prayers and the Salah times, or when they did an extension appeal, people would give for their local masjid. And this was what we were seeing. But what we've seen is that there's virtual donation boxes, where there's fundraising pages where people are donating towards the masajis through online means. And this is good for the masajis as well. And also masajis have started to think about the sustainable approach that they should take for them to become financially stable. And this is very important, because masajis, we always said, donations, they would never run out. People would be coming, they will be donating, they've been, getting the support service, spiritual service, and people will be, the buildings are there, nothing's going to happen. But one thing we've noticed is that financial stability of faith organizations is very important. And this is where our future and our focus should be after this. Where how do we make our mosques more sustainable? Is it whether we, for example, have some sort of investment endowment fund where mosques are being, where people put support in the mosque, where the day-to-day running of the mosque is can be done. And I think whether you invest in a property, a mosque buys a shop, rents it out, money coming in, and it will help the mosque, and it will make the mosque sustainable. And I think this is a huge thing that mosques will look into, where how do we make ourselves much more sustainable in the time, because if COVID-19 happens, something in the future could happen, and but how do we make ourselves sustainable financially? Because mosques, you've probably seen Muslim Council of Britain, the report came out where mosques are probably, the donation went from there's £500,000 per Jummah to virtually zero. Some of them, they had no direct debit set up, standing orders for people to donate towards a mosque. There was only the bank details, but people would find it very difficult to go and pay through bank details. And I think this is where the change will come. And I think after this, we will start to see, mosque being much fulfilling the duty of civil responsibility and civic responsibility as well.
And it's a good point you raise, and it's something we discussed very briefly on our previous show, which was that most people don't appreciate how much masjids are affected and their staff and imams are affected by this pandemic. But what is really positive about what you said, actually, which I'd like to expand on more with others, is that children have had more of a positive experience with their parents being engaged in their learning, which is a really, really positive way of adapting. I think it's a really good way in which parents can be more involved and take this opportunity to be more involved in their upbringing and their education, and of course in a positive way. But also, you also raised that in some ways, because imams and mosques have started to become online and be available through direct messaging on social media platforms, in one way, mosques and services and imams have, and other pastoral services that mosques provide, have actually become more accessible at this time. And so I'd like to talk about those 2 points. First, about the mosque accessibility and the teaching of children with Sister Asma. So it's really, really good. Like I said, it's positive that parents are engaged more in children's learning. But Sister Asma, what would you advise parents who might be losing their patience with their kids at home?
That's a hard question to answer, because I'm sure even me, I'm a very patient person, but when it comes to especially during Ramadan, you have to show a lot of patience. I mean, in the Quran, it always says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. It's always about sabr. We have to show sabr in this time. I mean, especially for the mothers. I mean, it's really hard because you are fasting, you've got the children to teach, you've got the house to look after, you're the main person in the house where you have to keep everything stable, so that the kids don't feel like they've sort of lost anything when obviously they're not going to school anymore. I'm doing this thing with my children where I do a school, it starts at 10 o'clock, and I say to her, when you put your yellow cardigan on, you're at school, you're not at home. So I give them that kind of way of thinking that they're actually at school. So when she'll go, oh mum, no, don't call me mum. I'm not mum. I'm miss. Call me miss. So when she puts that yellow cardigan on and she's sitting down doing her work with my little 3-year-old, which is a disaster sometimes, but it's subhanAllah, it's like you're in the situation and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just sends sabr down. This is how I see it. I see it like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends his sabr down onto you. And then you sort of find a way to actually deal with it in a way. Because, I mean, for me, I think what happened was before all this pandemic happened, everybody was just so much into their lives and their daily routine, and everyone was just all over the place, and they didn't have time for the things that we wanted to have time for. But now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us that opportunity. We have to sort of take it and even to learn about our children. I'm sure a lot of people who are working, especially mothers who are working, don't get that sort of connection with their children where they don't even I've learned a lot of things from my children. I mean, since I've been in lockdown. And subhanAllah, it's a brilliant opportunity for mothers and fathers as well, because they have to take part of it in it as well, to sort of reconnect with their children and understand their children. And I think it's given me so much, you know, I'm so grateful, because now I feel like when I wake up in the morning, I think, yes, I'm teaching my children. I'm the one that's giving them their you know, the education, they're looking after them, everything. So it sort of gives you that sort of sense of gratitude that, you know, yeah, I'm the one that's doing everything. I'm the one that's teaching them, and you feel a sense of pride in a way, because you're everything to them. You're their teacher, you're their mother, you're the person that looks after them when they're not feeling well. You're their nurse. So you're literally everything, especially during this pandemic. You are everything to that child, and you have to show sabr. If you lose your patience and you lose that kind of like that, you know, that whatever it is, whatever you can't, like anger, if you have that anger in you, it's not going to be nice. The environment in the house is not going to be nice if that's the way you're going to be. But subhanAllah, always ask Allah for sabr, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts us in these situations where we have to show patience, because if we're not, it's just gonna affect the whole family, and you can't go out of the house because you're in lockdown. So it's just going to create a horrible atmosphere, really.
That's true. No, thank you so much for that. I think that's a valuable lesson for everyone to keep remembering, not just parents, but also aunts and uncles looking after their nieces and nephews, or grandparents minding their grandchildren while their children may be at work, if they're key workers. And I just want to come briefly to Imam Hassan again, because he will be leaving us in just under 10 minutes. Brother Dawood mentioned that how imams and masjids have become more accessible in a way because they've gone online. But you also talked about this void that needs to be filled. So I guess I've got two questions for you before you leave. What ways could this void be filled? What other ways could this void be filled that people may be missing the masjids and their engagement with their imams or other pastoral care and services through the mosques? And has this new way of working or new way of adapting given us example of a new model of engagement for the future, even after the pandemic is over?
I just want to start with the last point you made. I think it's very, very important. And what Maulana Dawood mentioned, that there are some mosque imams more accessible now. But there are others who, in terms of their Friday collection, they've been not getting anything. And some have had to basically sack the imams because they've not been able to raise the funds to pay the staff. Not just the imams, by the way, but there are other staff members, the maktab teachers and the caretakers and others. And what this actually does for our mosques, and it's very, very important that the committee members and the leaders of our masajid, they understand this, that times will change, and the mosque, they need to change with the times. You know, we're talking about Friday collection, we're talking about lockdown, and as men, we're talking about, we feel a void and emptiness. But what about those women who want to go to the mosque, but many mosques, unfortunately, it's a complete 24/7 lockdown for them because they're not able to enter the mosques, you know? So I think what this opportunity has done, and it is an opportunity really, from the Muslim perspective, we take everything, a challenge as an opportunity for us to reflect, to muhasabah and reflect and understand where we're at the moment. And mosques need to do that. You know, whether, as Maulana Dawood mentioned about mosques being financially self-sustainable, whether them admitting other members of the public community within the mosques, the community member management and whatnot, mosques need to think, otherwise they'll be left behind because times will change, society will move on. To a large extent, the mosques, many mosques and imams, they've adapted to the situation, but we will need to adapt more because of the time is ever changing, the context is ever changing, we need to adapt with that. And to come back to your first point, I think there's always going to be, if I want to be honest, and I'm sure everyone here feels that, you know, mosques for the believer, for the Muslim, has a special place inside the hearts of the believers, you know, and nothing we do, whether online or offline, whatever we do, can fill that void, to be honest, right? We do feel sense of sadness because the masajid are closed, because this is where because we go to the mosque where there's nothing else except servitude, except worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But as I said, we do what we can, and we have to adapt with the circumstance and context we live in. And I guess, what the mosques are doing, many mosques are doing and imams are doing, is providing the online support, providing the Zoom classes or whatever other platforms that are out there. I myself am a counselor, and all of my clients are online now, because obviously we can't do face to face. And just to touch upon what Sister Asma brilliantly mentioned about, as parents, yes, we have to be patient, but our patience are very tested during these times. The kids are, there all the time, there's no breather, and the patience is tested, to be honest, right? And I feel that sometimes as parents, we need to just, take a step back and we need to speak to people. And I really encourage people, parents in particular, during this time. I have clients where they have arguments and disagreements because they're in their faces all the time. And sometimes when they just need to speak to someone different, speak to someone, that they may not know, but that person is there to give a listening ear. And I think this is very, very important, because finally, one of the major problems that we will see, the pandemic, the virus is very dangerous, right? It's life-threatening, or it's a killer. But what will happen, unfortunately, and we have to prepare psychologically and mentally, what will happen, the economic challenges that we will face as a country, as communities up and down the country, is going to be devastating. And the psychological and the mental impact that will have on individuals, on families, on communities, it will be equally devastating. And we have to really, and it's not to scare anyone, by the way, but mentally and psychologically, and we have to come together. Not just as Muslim, but as a community, as citizens of this country, come together and help each other, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very tough. We've reached it. We passed the 20,000 death mark, unfortunately, in the UK. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. That's heartbreaking, right? And unfortunately, this may continue for another week or two. But after this, and this will subside, inshallah. We know that this will subside. We know that we will overcome this. Definitely, inshallah. We'll overcome this as a country, as humanity will overcome this. But we have to be prepared to sacrifice. We have to be prepared to sacrifice for our neighbors, to sacrifice for our family and friends. And one of the nicest things I've seen, that alhamdulillah, our mosques, with all the shortcomings that our mosques have, but my local mosques, they've gathered together. They've got volunteers, and they're helping the poor and the needy. And every day they're knocking on doors, and they're giving out food parcels, and they're giving out help. And that's an amazing thing to do. Although the mosques are suffering financially, but they've been able to gather people together, able to gather finance together and help not just Muslim, but also non-Muslims. And that's something we have to celebrate, something that we have to be proud of our mosque, and something that we must continue, inshallah. So may Allah bless you, Brother Hayyan, and everyone on the call, inshallah. May Allah bless all the viewers, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to overcome this disease, this crisis, inshallah. And we shall, inshallah, with the help of Allah. And I bid you farewell now, inshallah. I'm sorry I have to leave early. So barakallahu feekum for inviting me, and inshallah I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So I just wanted to mention some of the comments that we received on Instagram and Facebook, etc. So we've had Fatima says, good job everyone, keep it up, and Ramadan Mubarak to all. Ida says Ramadan Kareem to everyone. And again, I think that we should remind people that while this is a testing time, this should also be a time for us to reflect and to spend joyously with our families and friends where we can, and stay in touch with those who we can't physically be near. We've had another comment from Sadia who says, Alhamdulillah, this has been a hidden blessing. We can't control what happens, but we can only do our best. So she's glad that we have the technology, and it is bringing all the families together. And I think that's really, really important. Imam Hassan talked very clearly and rightfully also about our mental health. I think both our mental and physical health is really, really important. It's very easy, and I'm someone who does this, especially when working from home, is to sit at my desk all day, eat, if I'm not fasting, of course, work, and then just wait until, and if I'm not, of course, if I'm fasting and just waiting until sunset, sitting down all day, and then I'll eat, then I'll be very full, and then I'll sit at the TV or go to bed, and I wouldn't have done any exercise all day, and I'll feel it when I walk upstairs, right? So I think it's really important we take this time also to look after our physical health. There's a very good initiative actually, and we'll be interviewing, the founder of that initiative next week, Rimla Akhtar, who has started Zimmer Fit classes online. It's a 30-day challenge throughout Ramadan, where people can follow each day as a challenge. It doesn't matter if you didn't start on day 1 or day 10. You can join the challenge at any time during the month. And it's like, I guess, like a Zumba class or a PE with Joe fitness class, you know? So I'm going to embarrass you all now as well, because this is something that I don't think anyone here is a particular expert at. So I'm going to embarrass you one by one. Dawood, so what have you been doing this month for your physical health?
What have I been doing? Okay, I've been hoovering the house. And just cleaning up the garden.
Okay, well, that's good. You're getting some sun and doing some homework. Mashallah, that's good. You know, I'm sure that your family and relatives and other half will be very pleased and will be encouraging you to do more. I'm sure they're probably rolling their eyes right now listening to this.
They're actually quite surprised. Someone who doesn't get up, you know, and is always on his phone, and you know, they're a bit surprised by what I'm doing. So, you know, I've got my role, and every day they know, you know, this is a time I need to hoover, and that's it.
Good, good. And Councillor Simon, do you do Zumba classes or anything like that?
Well, I have to say that in my normal daily routine, I run everywhere, like from one meeting to another, but it's not such as a physical exercise. I wouldn't, you know, classify this as a physical exercise. But since we are in lockdown, I have done quite a few like Joe Weeks classes. I've done on the PlayStation Dance Central. I've done, I go with one of my neighbor, obviously as distance, we cycle the neighborhood. So we clearly, you know, socially distance, but we do cycle. So this is something that I was not used to do it before. And now I really make the point of doing it because we carry on working. So we do have a lot of Zoom calls, and exactly like this, sometimes I wake up 9 o'clock, I'm here with my Zoom things, and it can be 9 o'clock in the evening and I'm still like on my Zoom. So I make a point each day to, if it's not for a walk, it's at least for cycling 30 minutes. So no, I have to say I'm quite proud on this.
No, that's really good. No, that's really, really good to hear. I mean, one thing that I've started to do is because I sort of work late and tend to enjoy my comforts in the evenings. My wife and I go for long walks at night. And also I think that's probably the safer time to go walking because nobody's out. But also we've got a bit more freedom to walk around. We're quite lucky in where we are. We've got a small town. And that's how I try to get my 10,000 steps in. And Sister Asma, are you also your children's PE teacher? And what do you do for them?
Oh no, well, I let them run around in the garden, really, to be honest with you. That's their main exercise for them. But for me personally, I'm running after a 3-year-old the whole day. So that's some sort of exercise in its own, really. I've told my husband to pump my bike, and it's been left there for 3 weeks and I haven't used it. So I haven't been very good, to be honest. But yeah, running after a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old is an exercise, I think, in its own. And anyone who knows me, I'm a bit of an OCD, so I'm always cleaning and running around the house anyway. So by the end of the day, I'm really tired, so I don't have really time to do any exercise.
Well, alhamdulillah, you get your exercise in. That's good, alhamdulillah. So I think on our last, probably what will be our last discussion point is, you know, looking back and reflecting on our first couple of days or first day of Ramadan for some. Yeah. And I'll come to you all individually about this. I'll start with the Dawood. What do you hope this Ramadan will bring that may not have we may not have had from previous years?
For me personally, I would say this Ramadan brings a lot of family time for me, because normally during this time at the moment, from Asr we would go to the masjid, and then we would have every day from Asr till Maghrib, we would sit in the masjid, recite the Quran, we would have a small gathering, and then as soon as Maghrib is Azan is called, we would just open our fast, read Maghrib, and I would normally open the fast in the masjid for the whole month, because we have nearly 100 people opening the fast in the masjid, and my role is just to supervise and make sure everything is going. And for 30 days, we would have that, and there would probably be 1 or 2 days I would open the fast at home. So it would be just my mom and wife, them opening it, and I would be there, and I would stay there till Salatul Isha, Tarawih, and then come after that. So this is how my normal day would be, being a masjid from Zohar till the evening. And then, however, now it's just staying at home, doing the basic chores at home, which are not too basic, just to say, sometimes we take it for granted. We say the basic, but it takes a lot of time. So I'm just getting used to it and just helping out. At the moment, I can hear, they're preparing iftar, and I can smell some of the food as well. So, it's a bit different. The feeling's different. But one of the things we've started is, which is, just as a family, it's important that we make our homes and masajid. So we pray together, whether you have Jamaat together, you sit down together. And it's really important we do that, because, we sit down together for food. But spiritually, we have to, sit down together as a family as well, because it's very important for families. And, when we were young, they say, those who, pray together, stay together. I think there's something like this. So we should, as families, come together and eat together, sit down together, talk to each other. If there's something that your child might be, how do I pray my salah? How do I do this? Just by copying you, they might be, they might see you as a parent. Normally, you would just tell them, do this, do that. But sometimes you have to practically show them. And I think this is the difference, where you have to be practical role models to your children.
Absolutely. And Sister Asma, what would you like to see out of Ramadan this year?
For me personally, I want to reconnect that sort of relationship that you have with Allah, just on a personal level. Just worship on your own, read Quran on your own, just do everything on your own, really. Because for me, really, Ramadan is all about just me and my prayer mat and my connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I know I wasn't, because of the children and everything, you can't really go and pray Tarawih because it's their bedtime and you need to be at home. So once the kids are all sleeping, that was my time between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to connect, and for me to do my prayers and do my Tarawih and do my Tahajjud and read my Quran. I always felt it was it was a personal sort of relationship that you have during that time, especially for mothers, because me personally, it's hard to go to the masjid with a 3-year-old or 8-year-old because they're young, and then they got bedtimes, so I couldn't really go. So my time was really when the kids used to go to sleep, and my time was it was nice because I have a person, and there's still, obviously because of what's happening now in the pandemic, and I'm still doing that to today. That was my personal time to sit and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And the same question for you, Saima. What do you hope to gain out of Ramadan this year that you may not have got in previous years?
Well, I have to say that, since that all started, but also since Ramadan started, it's reflection on, the waste that we do on food. And I've got 3 children, but another point is like my 3 daughters and my 3 girls, even they're all grown up now. So I fully sympathize with Sister Asma, but mine are grown up, and for 2 of them to daily go to the food bank to help people, something that they would have not done before. not because they didn't want it to, it's just that opportunity wasn't there, but also there were, there wasn't such a situation. So being more connected to Allah, why you're doing something, always keeping Allah in your mind, why, for the sake of Allah. So I think that is something very special that I've seen since it's all started, and inshallah will carry on for the 30 days. But I think we all need to reflect on what happened when the lockdown started. Everybody panicked by, and it was like, I just felt like it was unnecessary anyway, but it was such a waste too. The work that we carry on doing in the borough, not as just a councillor, but also I volunteer myself. I go, I do the shopping for people. I do, I do whatever I can, and it helps me to reconnect as well with Allah. It's more spirit, because I'm talking about random people. They're not, it's the whole ummah basically. So if someone just called me and saying like, I need these specific things, and going to do the shopping for them and dropping, you're connecting with residents, you're connecting with people that you would have never done before. And God knows, will I do it in future? Will I carry on having that kind of relationship? I mean, going to do shopping for someone, which I don't mind. It's only if you've got the time to do so. And I think that it's all that. It's obviously during this month we want to reconnect spiritually, but we also want to reflect on what can we do better. How can we use our time better? How can we spend more time with our families, our children in a better way? A lot of discussion was about, things, services that gone online. Well, that's the future, I'm afraid. We need to think, ahead. Things will go online, and I mean, the shopping's gone online now. So, everything will carry on, and we need to think ahead. We need to think how we can carry on doing this and delivering to our young people, because they are our future. So if the deen, the spirituality is not available, at the same pace, it's unfortunate. And I think we need to really reflect on this.
Definitely. I mean, Ramadan is, you could say, a time to reset, reflect, reconnect, and repay, and not necessarily repay in physical form, but it's, repaying your communities, repaying those who you may have to reconnect with, and maybe you have to repay somebody to apologize to them for something and reconnect with them. Maybe you have to show somebody that you are grateful for them and reconnect with them. You reconnect with people spiritually during Ramadan, and we reflect on how we can be better ourselves, looking after our health and our community, but also how we serve, especially in this month, our wider communities. Ramadan is also a month of selflessness and charity. And it's really, really positive that so many young Muslims and Muslim organizations and mosques have done an incredible amount of charitable work this year already since the beginning of the pandemic, and will continue to do throughout Ramadan. It's not a surprise to us that Muslims, alhamdulillah, are the most generous community in the UK. We year on year smash the records in how much we raise for charitable giving. I think, £38 a second, every second in Ramadan, is how much money Muslims raise during this month. And so we must always remember our responsibility to our wider communities. And I think it's really important, again, to, bang this message home, which is stay home, protect lives. That's the best way that we can serve people. And if and when we have the capacity to safely do so, we should serve those who need our help. Go shopping for that elderly neighbor that may need shopping, pay them a visit if it's safe to do that, or just simply reconnect with them and give them a call. And I think on that note, I think we're at the perfect time to come to the end. I would just like to thank you all sincerely for joining us this evening. I hope that you have a lovely iftar. Enjoy the time with your family or friends. I'd just also like to say, to read out some comments as well. So Sadia K says, Ramadan Mubarak to you all, and thank you all, and more of this, please. And she also says that Joe Wicks is the best, so keep doing it, which I believe is a reference to the PE YouTube video session. So yeah, please do stay healthy, stay fit, and stay connected. And we will see you all soon next week, inshallah.